who can embrace the race that you're given and perform the best with the hand that you're dealt.
Yeah.
And I think before we get into, so we thought that our race recap would be sort of in the form of storylines of things that we heard from people, what people told us, what we sort of gleaned from all the hours that we saw. But I think before that, Chipper, one thing that I really enjoyed as someone who wasn't there for the first time in a few years, right, was like seeing all the vibes on display.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a SwimRun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 244 of the show. The 20, yeah, I know. It deserved the pause that we gave it. There's another reason why we want this pause, because the 2024 edition of Ötillö, the SwimRun World Championship, is in the books. The race took place on the first Monday of September, as it does every year, and no 2 years are ever alike. We've mentioned before that this legendary course is really sort of the main character in this swimrun tale, this journey that we all go on, and teams must accept and go through all the challenges that they'll face. Don't know what those things are going to be. Every year is different, and they write their own story. In this special episode, we share our race recap for what was really, I think, safe to say, spoiler alert, a challenging day out on the Stockholm Archipelago.
Safe to say challenging, yes.
And we got a lot of reporting. Basically, we're blowing up people's DMs. I know, Chipper, I know we were watching the live feed. As soon as the race was over, I was texting, getting people's race reports.
I'll pass my bedtime to watch the start.
Yeah. So this race is awesome. We talk about it all the time. But I think before we get into sort of the race recap that we're going to share here, Chipper, initial thoughts, like, how was your FOMO, dude?
It was tough. It definitely got up there. And I know you were trying to be good about it, but and of course, as we would expect, when people started getting over there, we started seeing all the stuff on Instagram. People were messaging us personally,
we miss you
as well.
It's
oh,
like,
you guys are here. Oh, here's our first fika. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so much fika I'm missing out on. But it was just, and then seeing people at the hotel, and I'm like, oh, this is it. And it was like really, I mean, kind of once you've had a taste, you always are going to be thinking about it, is the way it feels like to me.
Yeah, for sure. I think I was really good about kind of just like keeping my FOMO in check, sort of grateful for the experience. But one thing I was thinking about, so I went on the super long run instead of watching the live feed. I decided to go exercise.
Yeah, that was a good.
And I was thinking about sort of the impermanence in swimrun, how like we talk about how every race is different, every year is different. No race does that matter more than at the World Championship. It's the same course, but year over year, 2017 was a crazy year. 2018 was a record-breaking year. You never really know what you're going to get. And there's some about that where it's like, hey, this isn't a triathlon. This is a very unique thing. And impermanence in Buddhism is this idea that like everything's constantly changing and nothing is permanent, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how this course feels, right? Like, yeah, maybe the pig swim one year is still, maybe it's like it was this year, which was 4 or 5 foot swells. A washing machine is what we heard from a bunch of teams. I mean, cold. There was a lot going on. As we mentioned at the beginning, I mean, this race really is like a journey, and the teams have to navigate all the different challenges that get thrown at them.
Makes
and
it such
every
an
year is different.
amazing thing. And yeah, it's the same, but every year it's different, and it's still a day, no matter if you had it, whatever experience that you had. But yeah, everyone has their own, and you're definitely, it's who can adapt the most
for sure
to all the challenges.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. Who can embrace the race that you're given and perform the best with the hand that you're dealt.
Yeah.
And I think before we get into, so we thought that our race recap would be sort of in the form of storylines of things that we heard from people, what people told us, what we sort of gleaned from all the hours that we saw. But I think before that, Chipper, one thing that I really enjoyed as someone who wasn't there for the first time in a few years, right, was like seeing all the vibes on display. And they were just like all these examples. So the first one was like, Ötillö posted this video of Lars saying how he's not going to wear the goggles. Like he's just leveling up.
He's going no
like
goggles.
Full monk
Did
mode
that actually
for
happen?
Yeah, he didn't wear his goggles. Another one, which I know we really appreciated last year, was EX SwimRun. They were at a different part of the course this year, because I guess last year they kind of got in a little bit of trouble. So they were just kind of on some island, probably Run Mara somewhere.
Probably still.
And every single person that came by Every single team, they were there from the first team until the last team came through, giving them love. Now, if that isn't
High
just
five, knuckles in the pouring rain, mind you.
In the rain.
In the rain.
The whole time. Didn't matter. They were there for every single team. And it's just, gotta love that.
Yeah, that was an experience that I know we had 2 times on Runmura there. And it was like, they called it the energy station. And it really was energizing to like pass through and get your high fives and say hi. And obviously we interviewed him as well. So it's always nice to see in person. But I think another thing that we really liked as well, and this keeps growing, and it's so cool to see the movement of Team Envol representing very hard as usual on at Ötillö.
Yeah.
I've been working on my, I think it's like, it's more
Ötillö.
So
gotta like bring like the lower jaw.
Yeah,
out.
it's from Ötillö.
Yeah,
maybe.
Ötillö.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess we just wait 244 episodes to start working on our Swedish. But Team Envol was there. I saw they went out to Ötillö, it looked like, for their little training camp the day before, which I'm sure everyone that joined, and it's open to members and non-members as well, which I think is just really cool of Nicholas and the crew there. But like, I know when we've had that experience and the first time experiencing, what's that first transition? What are these Swedish rocks or hawks that they're talking about all the time? And for like, oh, it's just so helpful. And to take a crew out there, that was really cool of Team Envol there, and great results as well, of course.
Yeah, I think the Twix were back on the course.
We had to get confirmation about the Twix situation. We had heard that it was happening.
Yeah.
So it did happen.
I'm glad that happened. Yeah. And a couple, more than a handful.
One.
It was more than one. It was probably less than 6, but certainly more than 2 of just something which, one thing we heard all weekend or all week leading up while people were listening to our episodes and felt like we'd help them, whether it's our 3-part series or Oscar's walkthrough
or race reports or whatever.
So one thing that Oscar mentioned, series. And there'd be way more Oscar in the show later, so stay tuned. You know, you can never get enough Oscar Olson. One thing he mentioned on that walkthrough was before the pig swim, take the fucking gel.
Yeah.
Right. And people posting on social media, like taking photos with him, take the fucking gel. I mean, it was so cool.
I referenced that episode in both of our preps for Ötillö, and my favorite part about the clip is how he works himself up into this exclamation. He's like, oh yeah, you should probably take a gel. It's a long swim. He's like, yeah, take the gel, take the fucking gel. He just gets all fired up about it. And we've joked about, we've used the term take the fucking gel multiple times in our swim runs, and it sounds like you all have as well. So
it's like we gotta put it on a t-shirt or something.
Yeah. And the vibes were also really highlighted by the Ötillö Instagram and Facebook feeds really coming alive, showcasing a lot of behind the scenes content and just more content in general, which really fueled our FOMO that we were having from afar.
Yep. And I think add to that all the Fika shots. So I think safe to say this year people really embrace the Fika World Championships.
I mean, we've
you know, sometimes memes imitate life.
Has there been a team called the Fika Kings yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, there will be after this.
It's up for grabs, people. So with that, vibes were great. We loved so many people reaching out to us, and we're trying to get back to love. Every person I could think of before the race, I wished them well, and hopefully they got some sleep. I was inspired on the memes.
Great memes, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris has been on the meme, doing the memes for a while.
I was definitely feeling inspired. But so we thought we would break our race recap because there's a lot going on. You can watch the live feed. I'm sure they're going to put that up. There'll be a movie coming out, all that stuff. Yeah. But in terms of storylines, and then we can just sort of riff off kind of what was going on.
Sure.
So I think the first one is the weather, right? As we mentioned, every race is different, Chipper.
Yes.
This year, it looked like pretty unique. I mean, it was rainy before, water seemed cold.
Yeah, the reports that we were getting, this is a non-Swede take on the water temp, but cold for most Americans. 12, 15 C, that's kind of somewhere in the 50s somewhere, which, hey, for a couple swims, good. For 10K of swimming over a 12-hour race, definitely a different story. So the weather there and the rain and the kind of drizzle and just generally a cooler day than what we had the past couple of years. And I will say though, like that's like it's good swim running with it.
Yeah, unless, this is the second storyline,
Yeah.
Chipper, was just like the race conditions were really treacherous, especially the first
Yes.
few islands, which is something we've talked about almost ad infinitum at this point, about these first two islands being really different and they're already slippery. So when it's raining, it was slippery for everybody. And we heard from teams being like, they were like legit scared. People are dropping like flies, like ankles everywhere.
Oscar fell during his live feed. He slipped.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, usually the sort of front pack people kind of have the dry lines if it's dry out, but everyone had a similar experience. And I mean, those islands are treacherous enough on the most bluebird driest day. They're treacherous enough. And I think that there had been just overnight rain and continual rain when that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it rained from what I could, obviously wasn't there, but it looked like it rained for maybe the first half of the race or the first quarter of the race before it really cleared up. But yeah, I mean, looked like it was tough, very current.
Yep.
Couple teams reached out and said they were channeling Chipper, being like the seas were angry that day.
Wow, okay. The seas did look angry, and I thought we've done tough swims with swells. It's hard to see like on the streams like how difficult it was, but it definitely, I mean, it was choppy for sure.
It was rolly.
I mean, it's definitely rolly. You can probably look at the swim splits comparing the years and like figure it out, but no PRs. I don't think we're dropping in the swims.
Yeah, it wasn't a PR day unless you were at the tippy end, which we'll talk about that later. But yeah, rough race conditions, which made this for one of the more challenging Ötillös, more of your classic Ötillö experience, where just like a lot of things being thrown at you. And as we mentioned in the beginning, you just got to try to figure it out as you go along, do the best you can, keep moving forward. So unfortunately, this race had a lot of DNFs, whether it was for feeling super cold, being injured. We know a couple U.S. teams that had to drop out. A couple teams didn't make cutoffs. So conditions were challenging enough that it was actually affecting people's ability to finish the race, which is a huge bummer.
Yeah.
But I think, talk about storylines, like no DNF was more surprising and sort of unfortunate than Hugo and Amanda.
So Hugo, who multi-time world champion, his partner that he had been with, Max Anderson, sitting this year out from SwimRun. So he teamed up with another world champion. She has raced with Adriel a few times, multi-world champion in the mixed division. They paired up in the mixed. Really looking forward to their race.
I mean, I was predicting they were going to be first overall.
First overall. That would have been a really fun,
amazing
race to watch. Really looking forward to that. And yeah, very challenging swim. Lots of washing machine situation. And just from what we have heard, we don't have confirmation, but it sounded like she dislocated her shoulder, had some shoulder injury on the very first swim, and was unable to go on after that. And there was some clip of Hugo that he was like off swimming by himself, like he didn't even realize. And he said he turned around and was like swimming and looking for her. And her, so I mean, super unfortunate.
Apparently it was his friend Matthew who ended up winning. So a little bit of foreshadowing there. Had an awesome race. He was like, "Hey, where's your partner?" And he's like, "She's right here." No, she's not.
Like,
so he actually swam back and sorted it out. But I think, super unfortunate. I mean, I just kind of wanted to see what performance they were going to put out, but hopefully Amanda will be all right. But yeah, just kind of like a surprising one. I think the flip side of that, a storyline that shouldn't be surprising to anyone, is that the queen of swimrun, Desiree Anderson, did what she does with another queen of swimrun, Sabina Rappelli, and both of them just basically dominated top 10 finish, women's team, first place. I mean,
awesome
it doesn't matter the year, it doesn't matter the partner. She just wins.
There's not goated. And so that was really, really cool. And I do like new partner, very experienced swim runner, really, really cool storyline there. And always rooting for Desi and Sabi. It worked out well with ending in the eyes.
Yeah.
Good. Anyway.
Yeah. No, it works. Now, another storyline which we're super excited about. So Matthew and Alexis winning. So French team, if you remember Matthew in like a really crazy, the first year he did the world championships with Hugo, he broke his foot after the pig swim and finished the race, still finished second. Just incredible athlete. Finally wins his first Ötillö. Super well deserved. Smoking time. It could have just been like crystal glass for those guys. They were just moving.
That was so impressive. And I know, been chatted with him several years ago after that story. We were like, oh my gosh, we got to talk to this guy. But he's really been putting the work in, working on a lot of different things. So it's really great to see it pay off for him, and mega congrats.
Yeah, and certainly bragging rights for his podcast.
Yeah, the French SwimRun podcast. Be sure to check that out if you understand French.
Yeah, if you French,
or if you don't,
you can still listen. Just give them the downloads.
Yeah, people appreciate
the downloads. Plus, they've actually on their Instagram feed, they've been doing like a little course by course kind of breakdown.
That was really high quality.
Also
work.
in French, but nice how they broke it down and they put some B-roll of them actually on the course. That was super great.
That was a good touch. So check out their podcast as well.
Yeah, and not to leave out the mixed division, the Axel guards, husband and wife duo. No worries. Another guy who doesn't wear goggles because that just gets in the way.
I'm not cool enough to even consider not wearing goggles.
Hey, it would solve your foggy goggle problem.
It would, yeah. I had foggy contacts.
They won the mixed. I think the mixed ended up being like a wide open category this year, just the way it worked out. But worthy champions all around. Now, that's all we're going to spend on the winners because there's just so many storylines just behind that. I mean, our friend David Pasquet working his way up into the podium, another French team. We had him on last year. So really good. He's married to a Puerto Rican. That's why he always gets a shout out whenever possible. But there were so many French teams and a ton of US teams. So Chipper, honestly, when I wrote this down to talk about, like I wasn't even really sure where to start because, I mean, it was super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was seeing the crew show up and well represented there, really cool. And I guess I felt like, oh, I know, I'm like, oh, like how many people do we know that are racing? And I even looked at the start line. There's some other American teams that I'm like, how is that even possible?
They don't listen to podcasts.
Like, what? So yeah, that was so cool. And it's just really cool to see and to have them, teams that we race with on a regular basis or see a couple times a year, have that once in a lifetime type of experience racing Ötillö and representing.
Yeah,
US.
and certainly people had experiences out there. I mean, we heard from a bunch of teams. There was just like the craziest thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
It's funny because there's this in behavioral psychology, there's this thing called the peak end rule, which is basically like your memory of an experience is really sort of shaped by any disproportionate highs and lows, and then how the ending was. So if the ending was great, it helps you remember the whole experience
is a positive,
more
experience.
Positive.
Okay.
And with an ending like Ötillö, people were crossing the finish line. It's like, I can't believe I did this. But that ending, just like, I'm sure people's memories after they heal and sleep, it'll be fuzzier. But immediately afterwards, like a lot of the US teams were like, well, that was a thing.
Yeah. I feel like you should do it next year.
And
the finish line stuff is always so great to watch and see those experiences that people had as well. There was some, we know the One Water race happened. We have coverage coming out about it. So don't worry,
tuned.
One Water race folks, we'll get there. But Team USA, Team 2 USA there, who we saw many of you all were rooting for and watching and cheering on. Two members, Beek and Kayla. So Beek of Team Envol Spam Fika that usually races with Marcus. Him and Kayla, they were partners on the Team USA. They were already over in Sweden from the One Water race and like, well, let's just stick around another week and do this Ötillö thing. Beek's probably like fourth or fifth time doing it.
Six. I mean, he's done a ton. I mean, he was doing them before they were cool. You know,
he was, yeah. And he said the hardest year that he's done is word on the grapevine there. But they had a great race in the mixed category. They finished as the 5th mixed team on the first US team. So mega congrats go out to them. And I definitely, you deserve a break after One Water race
for sure,
and Ötillö back to back.
Yeah, and I think and Kayla getting some redemption because I think last year she DNFs as a comeback to Worlds and really nail it. I mean, so great, and a bunch of people that we've been sort of shouting out and following. California SwimRun had a good showing. So many teams, too many to name to be honest, but we're all super proud of you and we're so happy that you had this experience because if I heard anything from people, it was just like, wow, like it was everything, it lived up to everything we were hoping it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we undersold it.
I don't think so. In fact, I'm always worried about
we
overselling this stuff.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, it was so great to cheer, and then texting folks like, oh, they're almost there. Like, oh, are they making? Oh, go, just keep moving. I'm like shouting at my phone. I'm like, keep moving, you'll make it. Keep moving. I'm like cheering everybody.
Dude, I was even sending the pretext. Like I was trying to make dinner, but I saw that like Team Sight the Beam, shout out Sight the Beam.
Yes,
like they already hit the last checkpoint, and I know they were gonna finish.
Yeah, they're on Uto. Yeah,
they're basically the last checkpoint. I think is like going up the hill to the finish. So I was like, I gotta make dinner, but I'm just gonna tell him congrats now. So I just fired it off like he wasn't even done yet.
Yeah, so many awesome,
so great,
so many awesome stories there. Keep sending them as well. We love hearing. We'll hear you
for sure.
We want to hear the war.
So because we weren't there, again, we already dealt with our FOMO. But a good friend of the show, Oscar Olson, was there. He was running media. He posted that he ran a total of basically 22 miles, 36K running back and forth filming that day, which is just like, he said he was doing running media. He also said it was a pleasure to be able to do that. I'm like, yeah, dude.
Yeah, of course.
Good for you. Good for you. But I hit him up. I was like, hey, Oscar, obviously a lot of storylines, but what were some of his favorites as someone who was like on the ground kind of seeing it? And he had asked him for a few. We got a whole bunch.
Give 10.
We got a whole bunch. But the first thing he said was he was so excited to see how many international racers were at the start line, especially from the France and the US, like we talked about before.
Yep.
Together with all the spectators who were on the boats, people, French teams all over the place, and how high up they were ranked, and they had all this crowd support along the course.
The French brought it.
Super great. Super great. Yeah. He also said he was hoping that more US teams and others will represent in the years to come. And I think it's coming. I think particularly the US teams, Chipper.
Yeah.
Like in the women's category. Like
it's looking pretty good out there.
It was like, I don't know how many, I think it was like 6 US women's teams that were in the women's category, which that's the category we're always trying to grow. So that was super cool. He also mentioned how like the overall vibe.
The vibe was,
he gets it.
Vibe was good. Nice. Minor tangent. I'm sure you saw Christopher in financier of ARC. He has his newest James Bond villain boat. And did you see some of the videos on there?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so amazing. And Helen from ARC is sitting on her cheeks are just like shaking. This boat is insane. And that's how he was also so fast. He was being transported on the James Bond villain boat.
Yeah.
To the next thing. So I really enjoyed the boat clips, and I love how he just gets a new boat every year. I love it.
Hey, it's great. It's great. Another thing Oscar really liked was that the Twix bars were back on the course before the pig swim. He also said he was really happy that Matthew finally took the top step of the podium, something he's been working so hard for so long. We totally second that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing he said was that for him personally, like he really loved all the interactions he was having with people and how energetic everyone was. And you just realized that like, hey, it felt like there's more interest coming to the sport. And people just seem super stoked on it, which is like to hear that from him, who's like Captain Super Stoke.
Yeah,
I think it's saying something.
That's safe to say. Yeah, he definitely feeds off the energy. And I tuned into a lot of the Facebook Live that he was doing, and there was active comments and discussion around this and that. Go this team, go that team, and then you would just hear Oscar like running with the thing. And one time he slipped and fell. I couldn't believe it. He got right up, just kept going. He's like slippery rocks
show
this
business.
Year. I'm like, yeah, the show business with this. And he switched into a wetsuit. He had an ARC wetsuit on with some arm sleeves at the end. So he was getting the
shots.
Doubt.
He was getting the shots. And no better person, no better ambassador for the sport, former world champion, who actually came out of retirement, and him and Adriel just won Gothenburg like no problem a few weeks. So Chipper, so that was a race. Again, if you want like a leg by leg breakdown, you can find those. If you want a course overview, you can find those too. I think for this, we just really wanted to share. Looked like it was an amazing day.
Yeah.
So many amazing stories. As we said in years past, anyone who lines up, who's on that boat, getting up at 3:05 in the morning to make the ferry for the 6 a.m. start, anyone who's on Sandhamn, respect.
Yeah.
The day didn't go your way. Props. That happens sometimes, but hey, respect for just showing up and going for it.
And you still had some hours out there. You got to enjoy it for a couple hours. But mad respect, and congrats to everyone that finished from the top to the last people bringing it in at 14, 15 hours there. Just what a fucking day.
Yeah, and the post-race food.
Oh,
That was honestly, that's where I lost like my FOMO control. Was I think California SwimRun sent us some photos of the food and stuff. It was just like, damn.
And I did like they were
so
going
good.
around with the camera, and there were some people that just, I mean, I've been there, just sitting there, just like shelled as a human, just like shelled, just like, oh, like just eating something and like having a drink. I'm like, yeah, I totally get it. So yeah,
It'd be
hopefully
like
heal up, rest up soon, and we'll see you out there.
Did you just say we're going to try to qualify for next year?
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of
too.
course, yes.